Most people, they do everything right. They buy the right property in the right location. They do really good interior designer. They spend millions of dollars, and then they list it on Airbnb, and they're just praying to get bookings, and then crickets, right? Because if you don't have this strategy, if you don't understand the algorithm, you're not going to get visibility. Nobody scrolls past page 2 or 3, right?
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll, and I'm here with Jacob Hernandez. What's up, Jacob?
What's up, Brian? Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for coming on. All right, so Jacob is in the Airbnb space, boutique hotels, right? Like, Jacob, give everybody a little background, how you got into real estate and, like, what you do.
All right, so backtracking a little bit, I think I was like 22 years old. I was still in college, and I started this e-commerce Amazon brand selling wedding gifts. So I'd never been to a wedding up to that point. But the data analysis, I've always been super data driven, said that this was a good niche and it was a good market. So I started selling wedding gifts. I ended up scaling this to mid 7 figures and exiting this. And at that point, I was looking to get into real estate, but I didn't know what market. And I started looking at the similarities between short-term rentals and the Amazon world. Both are algorithms, right? You're listing on Amazon. It's pretty similar to the Airbnb world. And I just started doing acquisitions there. And pretty recently, we just had an exit to a private equity fund. And now we decided to focus on boutique hotels, which is short-term rentals, but on steroids, commercial asset, bigger, no short-term rental regulations, and then values based on NOI instead of comps, which is a big problem of residential, where you can't really force appreciation. So, that's the current landscape.
That's nice. So how old are you now?
I'm 20, just turned 28.
All right, cool. So yeah, you're pretty young still. And you got into that. When did you start doing the Amazon?
Amazon when I was 22.
All right, cool. So Amazon, you're talking wedding gifts, like the beer mugs and stuff?
Yeah, we had Mr. and Mrs. everything. Coffee mugs, cheese board, cutting board, wine glasses, anything we could engrave, that aprons, anything we could engrave with the Mr. and Mrs., we would do it.
Nice. How long did you do that for?
It's like 4 or 5 years. I had suppliers in China. I actually flew there while I was still in college for an internship, and I only lasted 2 days in that internship. I quit and started looking for suppliers, and that's how I got into it, and sourcing stuff from there.
That's pretty cool. Now, whenever you were selling on there, did you just have them drop ship, or did you like have everything shipped to you and then you mailed it out?
Yeah, so it was a private label brand, and I actually had a warehouse in Miami. I would actually drive after school, receive the pallets, and then I would ship inventory into Amazon. It's called the FBA program, and they would fulfill the moment an order would be placed by the customer. They would be in charge of doing the whole logistics stuff. Nice.
So you can get the overnight like prime shipping and everything.
Right. Because if you're doing it from your own warehouse, like, you're not going to be competitive. You're going to get crushed because everybody's looking for a 1 day, 2 day shipping on Amazon. So you need to be having all your inventory at their warehouse.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So that's interesting and that's cool. So then you switched to real estate.
Yeah.
And you say you didn't do any like long-term rentals. You're just doing the short-term Airbnb stuff.
Yeah, I went straight for the short-term because I wanted the cash flow. I didn't want to do the wait and the long game. You know, it was I wanted to get the cash flow.
Makes sense. So, and where did you do that?
It was all South Florida, so not Miami, but Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, all that area.
Nice. Okay, how many properties did you have when you exited that?
12 assets.
Nice. Cool. And then on the Airbnb side, you got the cash flow coming in. When you started that, were you the guy going in and changing the sheets, or like how did that business work?
No, actually, I the first remodel, I was there doing the whole remodel, trying to figure out how to do the bathroom stuff, kitchen, and it was a whole process. But after the first couple assets, I was just hiring. I had a designer, an interior designer. We had a whole crew, and then we had a team to do the cleaning, maintenance, and all that. So
that's cool. So you were buying, say, junky houses, fixing them up, then Airbnb-ing them.
Well, our strategy was a little different. And the way we identified the gap in the market, because a lot of people will say South Florida is a saturated market or this market's saturated. The way we did it was, again, coming back to like that data-driven analysis back from the e-commerce days, we analyzed every single city and every single market, and we identified this gap, which was, if you look at the listing distribution between 1 bedroom up to, say, 6 bedroom properties, you're going to see that probably 90% of all listings are 1 to 2 bedrooms. That means it's super saturated. So if you were going to buy a one bedroom apartment, a studio, or a 2 bedroom house, you're going to be competing against thousands and thousands of listings. And what we found was we found a gap. We saw that 6 bedroom properties was only 2% of all the listings in South Florida. And not only that, they had 2.5x higher ADRs not ADR, RevPAR than 1 bedroom property. So we could not only be more profitable, but we could command higher rates and have a higher occupancy. So once we identified this, we went a step further and said, okay, how can we further differentiate ourselves and compete in a blue ocean instead of going where everybody else is at? And we found that we needed to have a pool, a large outdoor area so that we could have it full of amenities. And then we also bought only waterfront properties. So that was our niche. 6 bedrooms with the garage that we could convert into a game room, with a pool, with the waterfront, and then we would add all the amenities. Fake beach, volleyball court, indoor cinema, game room, everything, right? And doing that allowed us to have ADRs over 1,000 all year round and 90% occupancy. So that was our strategy, and that's what really worked well for us in the Airbnb game. So it goes to show you that the most important part of this to be successful is having the right market, but then you have the right property for that market and the right location, right? So it's a combination of all those 3 key elements, because sometimes you might find a really good market, but then you buy the wrong asset in that market and you're going to be competing with everybody else.
Right. You know what? In places like that too, you probably get a way better tenant or person renting from you as well.
Yeah, I mean, we had pretty good guest quality because you're having higher nightly rates, so we never really had too many issues with guests. It was pretty smooth, to be honest.
Yeah, because I always hear these horror stories like people come in and trash your place, more expensive places. You're getting a different caliber of person renting there.
First, it's more expensive, but then it's also setting the expectation. So as soon as people book, like that's the first thing we tell them: no parties allowed, no more than 16 guests. We have noise monitoring sensors. So we're letting them know, we're setting those expectations. And we've seen that people that are thinking of doing those parties, like they'll cancel right away. But we also have really good guest screening process. And what we're looking at is their reviews and where they're visiting from, and if they're booking last minute, right? Those are the big red flags. If it's somebody that's local, say in the Miami area, and they're booking for the weekend and it's a last minute booking, that is a huge red flag. They're obviously going to be throwing a party. So we don't accept local bookings if they're last minute. If they're booking 2-3 months in advance, it might be for a family reunion. It might not be a party, right? But we're still being really careful and selective on who we're allowing so that they're not causing issues at our properties.
That's interesting. Okay, so then you look at the data, you find the types of properties, the location properties, all that kind of stuff. Now, you have to get it seen. So let's talk about like the algorithm, like the platforms on how you market your property to get it rented.
Right. So now we're going into the algorithm and the marketing side, which is just as important, right? I see Airbnb as 5 different pillars. Like you just said, the right market, the right property in the right location with the right marketing, and then you have the right operations and revenue management. So going into the marketing stuff, the most important stuff is your click-through rate, which I'm going to explain how that works in a second. But the metrics that Airbnb is looking at when they decide if you're going to be on the first page or not is click-through rate, time on listing, and your conversion rate, right? And the way to influence those is, first, let's talk about your click-through rate. When you search on Airbnb, you're going to get hundreds of results, right? So what are the only things that a guest can see before clicking on your property, right? That's your main image, your price, your title, and your rating, right? So in order to influence your click-through rate, you need to optimize all of those. Main image is probably the most important thing. But if you're not pricing your property competitively according to your market, if you have a title that's not descriptive, a lot of people waste this space instead of having like their most important amenities. Like ours is going to be luxury waterfront with the beach, game room. Like we're keyword stuffing that so that guests can see what they can expect from our property. Now, the main image, that's probably the most important thing. And what we usually do is like we find the best shot of our property, say the backyard, and we want to show as much of what we have in that shot. So sometimes we might Photoshop the jacuzzi and move it a little bit so that it can all be in the same shot and that we can show, hey, we have a fake beach, we have a volleyball court, we have the pool, and we have the jacuzzi, but we're trying to show it all. And at the same time, we're analyzing our competitors and we're seeing how they're doing their main image, and we're trying to stand out. So if they all have like a sunrise photo, then we'll do a sunset, right? We want to stand apart. We want to grab the guest attention because they're going to be seeing 20, 30 properties at the same time. So you want to have colors that stand out. We might add some like pool floats, a pink pool float or something just to like captivate the guest and grab their attention for a couple of seconds so that we can bring them inside our listing, right? So once Airbnb is tracking from the first page, when people land on that page, how many people out of those are clicking into your listing? That's your click-through rate. The higher that is, the better rank it's going to give you. Next, it's time on listing. So the time on listing can be influenced by a lot of different factors. That's going to have really good secondary images, right? Have a really good description with an FAQ that answers as many questions as possible that the guest is going to have, right? You want to keep them inside your listing. But a really good hack that we did was we would have a QR code and a secondary image that would take them to a YouTube video of our property, right? But they're still on our listing. So they may go for a YouTube video 3 to 5 minutes to watch that while they're still on our listing. So there's just small little tricks that you can use to really game the algorithm. And stuff like that is what influences the time on listing. And then finally, the final metric is, of course, your conversion rate. So out of all those people that go into your listing, how many book? We found that metric is important, but there's a way to basically game the algorithm through wish list. And Airbnb sees that as a booking intent signal. So it's similar to like if you think of Instagram, when people like an image or a Facebook post, when people are liking a Facebook post, it makes it show up higher on your feed. It works the exact same. If you get people to go into your listing and wish list it, you're going to have a higher rank, right? So when we launch our properties, we usually have influencers stay at our properties and they'll do a campaign to their audience telling them to go to this listing. So they'll stay at our property, they'll shoot content, and then they'll be like, hey, we have a contest here. Guys, go to this booking link, wish list this property, and contact the host. The moment they're wish listing and contacting the host, they're signaling the algorithm that there's booking intent. And Airbnb starts positioning us. So those 30 to 60 days when we launch, Amazon gives you a honeymoon period. That's when they're giving you the opportunity to show up in the search results as a new property and compete with all the established listings. So those 30 to 60 days, like you want to go hard with all these metrics. You need to have a planned launch. Most people, they do everything right. They buy the right property in the right location. They do really good interior designer. They spend millions of dollars and then they list it on Airbnb and they're just praying to get bookings and then crickets, right? Because if you don't have this strategy, if you don't understand the algorithm, you're not going to get visibility. Nobody scrolls past page 2 or 3, right? So if you're hidden in the search results, you're not going to get any bookings. So that marketing aspect is critical.
Yeah, and you said you came up with a book outlining a lot of these tips, right?
Yep. It's going to be probably live next week. So probably by the time this podcast airs, it's already going to be on Amazon Kindle, but it's going to be called Short-Term Rental Secrets. And it basically outlines everything we're just talking about here and the 5 pillars I just told you about.
Nice. So yeah, everyone check that out. Yeah, because it will probably be out by the time you're listening to this. All right. So, Jacob, for somebody that is a real estate investor now, say they're flipping, wholesaling, things like that, and they want to get into Airbnb, what do you recommend to those guys?
Well, read the book and spend the time up front, again, analyzing the right market, the right property, making sure that you have all these fundamental pillars in place before you invest a dollar. So I always tell people, like, if you don't have too much money right now, invest in education first, and it's going to pay off over the long term. So first educate yourself, right?
What's one of the top mistakes you made that you learned not to do again?
Top mistakes that I learned. Yeah, probably not hiring up front. The first property we tried to do, we only hired the designer last minute. And it's because of her that our properties honestly did so well, because we were trying to just furnish it ourselves and like do it all because we didn't want to invest the money. But now I just look for the best people that are smarter than me, that have the abilities where I'm not good at, and I hire and delegate that. There's no point in trying to save, because the end product's not going to look even closely or remotely as good as hiring a professional, right? So build a good team and have solid people around you, and don't try and save that, because it's really an investment, not an expense.
Yeah. Which type of team, if you had to give like a head list, say someone wants to do an Airbnb business, if they wanted to do it like with a super lean team, which hires would you have, or which people would you pull on your team?
So a good general contractor, a really good interior designer, and that's for the first phase of the investment. And then you're going to need a really good cleaner, because she's going to be your eyes, right? Like you don't really need a property manager. If you have a really good cleaner and maintenance guy, those two can act as your property manager and let you know any issues that are happening at your assets. So that would be like the lean team, like a maintenance guy and a good cleaner.
Nice. And now you said you got into boutique hotels now, right?
Yep, that's correct.
So what's a boutique hotel?
A boutique hotel is a hybrid between your Airbnb and your big hotels, say 100 plus unit, your Hilton, like your flag hotels. A boutique hotel is smaller, say anywhere between like 10 to 60, 80 units. And it's a hybrid model of like the Airbnb and the hotel. And the reason why I got into it is, first, it's way more scalable, right? When we were running around trying to manage all these assets, we had 10 different pools, all with different light bulbs, doorknobs, nothing standardized when you have all these single family residences. And you can't have just one on-site team, right? Because if the maintenance guy is doing work up in West Palm Beach, 40 minutes away from your other asset on the same day of checkout, he can't be at both properties at the same time. Same with the cleaning crew, right? So it makes it where once you scale past a couple of properties in residential, it's way harder, and you don't have the economies of scale, because you're going to be needing to have multiple teams. In a hotel, you have enough revenue to basically hire from the onset. You can have an on-site team, a property manager, a maintenance guy, and one cleaning team. And then you only have one asset to manage that's probably doing 3 to 5 times more revenue than a single property, right? So you can have that on-site team. Value is based on your net operating income, which that's a really big problem in short term in the residential space, is no matter how much cash flow your property is making, the bank is not going to appraise your property based on your income. So it's not valued as a business. So you can't force appreciation. With hotels, if you buy an asset that is doing 100K a year NOI, and you buy it, you renovate it, you increase the nightly rate, you improve the operations, say you're now at 300K. If you're selling it at 10 cap, say you bought it for $1 million, now you're at 3 million. So it's not a like crazy thing to see valuations or forced appreciation of 2 million, 3 million within a year or two with these assets. You're not going to see that in residential ever. And then lastly, the regulations, right? Short-term rental regulations in all these cities, all these counties are different, and they're only getting worse. We had one of our properties in Oakland Park, and the city came back to us and they're like, you can only have 8 people at most. And our properties were set for 16 guests. So stuff like this makes it where you're in a business that you don't control a lot of the things. And that's what made me look into now boutique hotels as my primary business model.
Yeah, it's solid. And that's things like you wouldn't even think too. You get an Airbnb, you're trying to rent it for 16 people. It's got the bedrooms. They tell you can only have 8. Like that significantly cuts back on your audience.
Yeah, and the nightly rate you can charge, because now you're not renting a house for 16 people, you're renting it for half of those. So yeah, that was a big learning lesson.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, well, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Brian.
Hey, so what's the best way for people to connect?
I guess you can put all my social media in the show notes, but my website is freedomvestcapital.com. And the book that I was telling you about, you can get it at freedomvestcapital.com/STR secrets.
Nice. Yeah, everyone check that out. That'll be in the show notes. Hey, Jacob, what's the top book you recommend to people? Obviously, other than the one you just wrote, that you'd recommend to people. What's your favorite book?
Any topic?
Any topic.
There's lots, but probably Think and Grow Rich was the one that changed me the most, right? I think making money is all about your mindset. So it all starts inside, not outside. So that's a life-changing book.
Agreed. Yeah, that's my top book also. Good stuff, man. Hey, well, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you.
Appreciate it, man.
Hey, everyone, thanks for listening. Until next time, get out there, crush it, close some deals. We'll see you guys.